U.S. Customs and Border Protection Data Breach. Group 4, Mike Marshall, Hector Ovalle, Garrett Haven, and Gwen Alphen. On May 31st, 2019, Customs and Border Patrol learned that a subcontractor had transferred copies of license plate and traveler images to its own network. These images were collected over a 1.5-month period. The subcontractor, who has not been revealed, was then compromised by a cyber attack. The Washington Post was the first news agency to report on this situation, stating that fewer than 100,000 people were impacted by this data breach, and it has been described by insiders as a major incident. The transfer of the images was in violation of Customs and Border Patrol security and privacy rules. Representative Benny Thompson, chair of the House Homeland Security Committee, stated, "Government use of biometric and personal identifiable information can be valuable tools only if utilized properly. Unfortunately, this is the second major privacy breach at DHS this year. We must ensure that we are not expanding the use of biometrics at the expense of the privacy of the American public." According to CNN, Customs and Border Patrol is working with law enforcement and cybersecurity to determine the extent and appropriate response to given this situation. This breach came at a time that Customs and Border Patrol is moving to expand its biometric data collection. The Customs and Border Patrol released their statement that CBP takes its privacy and cybersecurity responsibilities very seriously and demands all contractors to do the same. CPO magazine has this to say about this breach. "This case demonstrates that it takes just one irresponsible or rogue employee at a subcontractor or vendor to create a damaging data breach. Regardless of what contracts might say, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has indicated that the subcontractor violated mandatory protocols that they had agreed to, whether intentional or due to incompetence. It only took the actions of one employee to put sensitive information from travelers in a vulnerable position. This really highlights that while the primary organization is handling their data securely, if they do not appropriate due diligence on all other parties that will have access to their data, it leaves a very large gap. Not only is it important to perform initial checks of an organization's security practices, but also perform routine checks on the policies and procedures of contractors, and also review their activities with an organization's data." Every organization is different. Security measures should adapt to any organization's environment and provide the best security possible. In this scenario, we learned that the breach happened with one of Customs and Border Patrol's subcontractors. There are many solutions to avoid this problem, and it's even harder when other parties are involved. Establish policies and guidelines for subcontractors. It is important to let all parties involved, and in this case the subcontractor, that because there is sensitive data, they must follow certain guidelines and policies. These are established by security engineers and architects and others who have a better idea how to protect this data. They can establish guidelines for user accounts and password requirements. One policy can be to document any changes while working with this data. Regular audits are an important aspect of security. In my current job, we go through many security audits to make sure our environments and codes are safe because we deal with credit card processing. In this case, Customs and Border Patrol can use these audits to make sure guidelines and policies are being followed. These audits should take place at least quarterly to maintain regular security measures. Apply the principle of least privilege. This means a user should have the minimum permission and access to do the job. In this case, it is important that Customs and Border Patrol regularly checks permissions on user accounts to avoid access to unauthorized areas. A great example of this is when Target got hacked and credit card information was stolen. This happened because Target gave an HVAC company access to their external network. The hacker attacked the HVAC system first, then noticed an account that had access to Target's network. Limit sharing information to subcontractors. This is the same idea of the principle of least privilege. Customs and Border Patrol can evaluate the importance of the data and how sensitive it is. They should also evaluate what exactly the subcontractor needs to do their job. There is always going to be a risk of leaked information, but if it's the minimum, then the impact is less. In conclusion, data breaches are nothing new. With the reliance on computers and internet-based systems, protecting your personal and business data is critical. The most fundamental course of action to take is to first have a plan in place that thwarts cyber threats. So many data breaches happen by accident. The best thing a business can do is train your employees on what to look for and how to avoid falling victim to social engineering scams. The information age brings with it a different set of complications, and cybercrime is the evolution of the old-fashioned bank robber. Instead of stealing money, they're stealing information that can be used for exploitative and malicious purposes.